Hi everyone. I hope everyone's doing well this week. I wanted to put out a brief video giving you some feedback on the second case study, like I did last time with the first case study, but this time I thought it might be maybe helpful to provide you with what I thought was an exemplary case study from Martin's case study. Now, I've graded about half of the case studies for Martin's case study, so some of you don't have your work back yet. I should be getting that back to you within the next couple of days here. And I wanted to just put this out as kind of feedback for everybody. So on the whole, I will say with the second case study, people are doing overall better in general than the first case study. So thank you for working hard on that. Overall, there's been more evidence provided for your ideas and your answers and your psychological interpretations of Martin, which is fantastic. This was just an exemplary one that I pulled. There are other exemplary ones as well, but I got permission from this student to share hers. So I just want to go through one of the answers here and talk about it a bit. But you'll see just from the get-go that there obviously appears to be quite a bit of detail in this case study. And if you do read through it, which I hope you do, there's not a lot of fluff here. There's everything in her writing and in this case study relates to Martin and relates to the Adler's psychology. So overall, very good integration of both. You will see in all of her answers, she goes back and forth between talking about Martin and comparing it to Adler's psychology and comparing it to Martin's life. When she brings up an idea about Martin, she supports it with evidence from Adler's psychology or evidence from our text. Now, in terms of length, not everybody's you don't necessarily have to have a case study that's this long. I'm not trying to say that I grade on length. But what I do grade on is depth of critical thinking, like I talked about in my first video, and providing evidence to your logical conclusions in your case study. And it just so happens that in her case study here, she provides a good amount of evidence for her logical conclusions. So again, it's not about being right necessarily. So for instance, in question 6 here, she believes that Martin has the ruling type lifestyle. And from the case studies I've read so far, I think most of you agree with that. However, some of you think that Martin has an avoiding lifestyle or a combination of the two, and that's fine. So really not about having a correct answer, but more how do you back that up and how do you support that answer. So if you're only providing a sentence or two to your answer, and if that sentence is somewhat vague or not very detailed, then you may be getting some points docked off for that. So if you look at this answer here, the ruling type best explains Martin's behavior. As a textbook explains, ruling types have very little social interest and they have intense strivings for personal superiority. Both these are true of Martin. For example, he did not get involved in the community or do volunteer work, and he had very few friends or romantic interests. These signs indicate that he had low social interests. Additionally, he worked very hard in school and in his career, indicating a high striving for personal superiority. The ruling type also desires to rule over and conquer others. This is true of Martin. For example, he had few friends, most likely because he did not treat people as his equals, but rather tried to control them. Moreover, he left a successful law firm in order to start his own, indicating that he desired more power and control within his career. The ruling type also tends to act in antisocial ways, and they feel threatened. Although Martin was not a criminal, it could be argued that his vapid materialism was somewhat antisocial. Perhaps Martin felt threatened and embarrassed by his humble past and his family. so he turned to acquiring more money and meaningless material goods to prove himself better and more powerful than others. So, couple of points there. Um, she says at one point, for example, he had few friends, most likely because he did not treat people as his equals, but rather tried to control them. Now, that's a logical conclusion that she makes. It doesn't necessarily say that in the case study, but that's kind of a leap of logic that she's taking. And I would say, based on the information that we know about Martin, it's a logical conclusion, and it's backed up with some of her reasoning here and relates to Adler psychology. So that's a major plus. Um, so again, I'm not saying that everything is, there's not a correct answer for this answer necessarily. In fact, there are some things that I could even argue in this paragraph that I would argue from my own point of view, but I'm not necessarily correct either. It's how everyone's going to interpret the case study or personality maybe a bit differently. So just wanted to read that because I think that was this answer was a good example of her bringing up different areas of psychology, Adler psychology, and then mapping it onto Martin's life. So, um, you also saw that in that answer, obviously very good grammar. I'm not too hard on grammar in these case studies, but if you're consistently making mistakes or I can't make out a sentence, it's hard for me to give you full credit. So just reread your case study two times. Two's kind of the golden rule. Reread things more than two times if it's more of a serious paper, but if you read things twice aloud, you should catch most of the glaring mistakes. And she seemed to clearly proofread her work here. So all these little things kind of add up, guys. And I hope this gave you a little bit of insight into some very strong case study work. Again, a lot of you are doing very well with this case study work. I've been very happy to see a lot of the work in this second case study, but thought I would just give you a little bit more general feedback on some positive things to maybe strive towards. So if you have any questions about any of this or any of the feedback that I give you, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Some of you have done that, which is fantastic. I love seeing when students want to understand the feedback a bit more or have some additional questions. That's a great thing because it means that you're wanting to maybe develop your critical thinking or your writing or somewhere in between. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great day.